The station's lower corridors smelled of recycled air and metal fatigue. Alara walked alone through the dim passages of Outpost Kara 9, her medical kit bouncing against her hip. Most humans avoided this section, too close to the wild. Zones where the station's artificial gravity flickered and the indigenous creatures sometimes wandered in from the planet's surface below. She heard it before. She saw it, a low, pained whimper echoing off the corroded walls. Alara froze, her hand instinctively moving to the plasma torch at her belt. The sound came again, weaker this time, followed by the scrape of claws on metal. She moved forward carefully, her breath fogging in the cold air, until she found the source. The cub was small, perhaps the size of a large dog, though its 6 legs and crystalline fur marked it as distinctly alien. One of its hind legs was bent at an unnatural angle, and dark purple blood seeped from a gash along its flank. Its eyes, large and multifaceted like cut gems, watched her with a mixture of fear and desperation. "Oh, you poor thing," Alara whispered. The creature hissed, baring rows of needle-sharp teeth. Its fur bristled, refracting the corridor's emergency lights into a rainbow of warnings. Every instinct told it to flee, to fight, to survive. Every instinct told Alara to walk away. She didn't. I know, she murmured, slowly lowering herself to the ground. She kept her movements deliberate, unthreatening as she opened her medical kit. "I'm not going to hurt you. Let me help." The cub tried to drag itself backward, but the injured leg buckled beneath it. It whimpered again, and something in Alara's chest tightened. She'd seen that look before, on soldiers, on civilians, on creatures across a dozen worlds. The look of someone who'd been hurt and expected only more pain. Humans, the other species said, were foolish, reckless. They saw suffering and ran toward it instead of away. Alara pulled out a sedative injector. "This is going to sting for just a second, okay? Then you won't feel anything." The cub snapped at her hand, missing by inches. Alara didn't flinch. She waited, patient, until the creature's thrashing exhausted it. Then, quick as lightning, she pressed the injector against its shoulder and depressed the trigger. The cub's eyes widened, then slowly dimmed as the sedative took effect. Its body relaxed, the defensive bristling of its fur fading to a soft glow. "There we go," Alara said gently. "Now let's fix you up." She worked for 2 hours in that cold corridor. The leg wasn't broken, just badly sprained, but the gash required careful cleaning and synthetic tissue patches. Alara's hands moved with practiced efficiency, suturing, bandaging, administering antibiotics tailored to the cub's alien physiology. She'd studied the local fauna when she'd arrived at the station, driven by the same curiosity that made other humans call her strange. When she finished, she sat back and studied her work. The cub's breathing was steady, its wounds clean and sealed. It would heal. She'd made sure of that. Alara gathered her supplies and stood, her knees protesting after kneeling on the hard floor. She took one last look at the sleeping creature, then turned toward her quarters 3 corridors away. She didn't see the cub's eyes open as she left. The next morning, Alara woke to find something blocking her door. Through the small viewport, she could see Tav. She'd decided to name the cub after an old word meaning guardian, sitting directly outside her quarters. The creature's crystalline fur caught the station's artificial morning light, scattering it in prisms across the corridor walls. "What are you doing out there?" Alara asked, pressing the door's intercom. Tav's ears swiveled toward her voice, but it didn't move. Its posture was alert, protective. When a maintenance drone floated past, the cub released a low, warning growl that sent the machine skittering down a different corridor. Alara opened the door carefully. Tav turned its head to look at her, those gem-like eyes meeting hers, and for a moment understanding passed between 2 entirely different species. The cub had been hurt. She had helped. Now, in the way of its kind, it would return that kindness. "You don't have to do this," Alara said softly. Tav simply settled more firmly into position, clearly disagreeing. For 3 days the cub didn't leave. Station personnel grew nervous. Captain Vex, a Korchan with scales like burnished copper, arrived at Alara's door with a security team. "Dr. Alara, we need to remove that creature. It's a potential hazard." "It's healing," Alara replied, stepping between Vex and Tav. "And it's not bothering anyone. It's a wild animal. It's a living being that understands loyalty better than most sentients I've met." Alara's voice was steel. "I treated its wounds. Now it's protecting me. That's not savagery, Captain. That's honor. Vex's translator implant hummed as it processed her words. The Courtian stared at her for a long moment, then at the cub, which had risen to its feet and positioned itself at Alara's side. Humans, Vex finally said, shaking his head. You find the wounded, the broken, the dangerous, and you show them kindness. Even when it makes no strategic sense. Especially then, Alara corrected. The captain departed without another word. But Alara caught the thoughtful look in his alien eyes. On the fourth day, Tav finally stood, tested its healed leg, and looked at Alara with something that might have been gratitude. The cub pressed its head against her palm, a gesture she'd learned meant trust among its kind, then turned and loped away down the corridor, back toward the wild zones of the station. Alara watched it go, a small smile on her face. Later, she'd discover that the cub had left something behind, a cluster of crystalline formations outside her door, gleaming like stars. Among Tav's species, such gifts were given only to those worthy of protection, to those who understood that strength and compassion were not opposites but complements. The other species called humans reckless, foolish, too quick to help, too slow to calculate risk, but they also whispered in their own languages, a word that translated roughly to pack bonder or wound healer or sometimes simply friend. And when the station's scientists analyzed the crystals Tav had left, they discovered something remarkable. They emitted a low-frequency resonance that repelled hostile creatures, a protective ward that would keep Alara safe for years to come. The cub had understood something the others hadn't. When a human found you wounded and chose to help, they weren't being foolish. They were being human. And in a cold, vast universe, that was the rarest and most powerful force of all. Alara kept those crystals by her door for the rest of her time on Outpost Kara 9, a glowing reminder that compassion, given freely, always returns home.